For this video, I'm dropping in on Six Flags Over Georgia to rank the best roller coasters from For this adventure, I decided to spend the day at Six Flags Over Georgia. Now, I've been to this park several times, and it's always been a very positive experience for me. I know some people have had hit or miss experiences over the years, but every time I come to this park in Atlanta, Georgia, it always works out well for me. Now for my normal disclaimers. I'm a wildly unpredictable and erratic person. Just because I rated these coasters this particular way today doesn't mean I'll feel the same way tomorrow. Having said that, you might also notice that sometimes I might be slightly sarcastic when there's something I don't like. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, here's the top 10 best roller coasters here at Six Flags Over Georgia. Number 69, the Joker Chaos Coaster. Yeah, this is a Larson Super Looper. This is a carnival ride. It's not a roller coaster. Six Flags must have gotten the crack marketing team from FunSpot to come up with this name, because it'll never be a roller coaster. It's just one of those spinning flat rides that you see pretty much at any cheesy flea market or traveling carnival. It's literally a torture device. There is a operator using a joystick that controls the momentum of how you go left or right. And that's the whole thing. It's not a roller coaster. It never will be a roller coaster. I mean, Larson's been making these fireballs for probably like 30 years now, and you know, it's been called the Ring of Fire and the Super Looper, and they're not coasters. Number 11, the Joker FunHouse Coaster. This was a tough rating for me. I wanted to rate this higher, and if this coaster was at any other park, it would have been in my top 5. It's one of the best kiddie coasters I've ever been on. Pretty innovative how this kiddie coaster kind of snakes its way like in and around the queue building for where you line up for this coaster. It's just clever, and you know, most kiddie coasters are just done on the cheap, where it's just, you know, something sitting on some grass and doesn't really take advantage of the terrain. This coaster is so much better for a kiddie coaster, and like I said, if it wasn't at such a fiercely competitive park for roller coaster rides, it should have ranked higher. I really did feel bad ranking this 11 because it's such a great kiddie coaster. You really need to ride this one. Number 10, Superman Ultimate Flight. I realize this is going to generate some hate. There are a lot of people that really like this coaster. I'm indifferent when it comes to flying coasters. Sometimes they really hit for me, and other times you get a situation like this ranking. I just don't care for this one, even though I'm a huge fan of B&M coasters. It's kind of a mediocre ride once you start thinking about it. You're talking about a roller coaster that's only 2,700 feet long, barely tops 50 miles an hour, and the biggest drop is 100 feet. So this is kind of, I don't know, it's just a kind of a lukewarm experience for me. I think it looks larger than it actually is because it's a flying coaster and you're lying down, and the perspective kind of makes it look more grand than it actually is. But this one just is a letdown for me. I never really cared for this ride, and that's why it only made number 10. Number 9, the Georgia Scorcher. This is a stand-up roller coaster built by B&M. I've read on several websites that this is the best stand-up roller coaster in the entire world. Theme Park Review, I think, said that. Wow, I'm impressed. Best stand-up roller coaster, huh? They kind of suck. Anyways, this is such an amazing experience that this is the last new stand-up roller coaster built since 1999. So apparently the rest of the world is as impressed with this thing as I am. Being the best stand-up roller coaster is a lot like making the best toilet paper. And at the end of the day, all I'm really going to do with it is wipe my ass on it. Number 8. Dahlonega Mine Train. Well, I do have a reputation when it comes to overrating these mine train rides. I think this is a pretty accurate reflection of this particular mine train. This is nothing to call home about. I think some of the other Six Flags parks have superior mine train rides when it comes to scenery and tunnels, and this one is just kind of mediocre when it comes to the setting. It's still a fun little family ride though. I would definitely wait in line, 45 minutes for this one. There's just a magic to these classic mine train rides. They're all getting kind of old nowadays. I mean, when it comes to the Six Flags parks, most of the mine trains were built in the 60s and 70s, so they're definitely pretty primitive. The one thing that has kind of shocked me about Six Flags is, they've had plenty of time to maybe spruce them up and, maybe improve on the theming, and they just don't seem to care. The theming is pretty half-assed, and I've never understood why that is. It doesn't really cost that much, especially when you're talking about an old mine train. I think Six Flags is kind of missing an opportunity for a little more immersion and to be more of a theme park than an amusement park. But maybe they'll take my advice and kind of spruce this one up. Number 7, Blue Hawk. This coaster is just kind of a lackluster experience for me. It's primitive, it's showing its age, and you can tell it's an afterthought here at this particular park. This coaster was originally built by Vekoma for Hunt's Amusement Pier in Wildwood, New Jersey. So that was a seaside amusement park built on a boardwalk. So that's why the dimensions on this one are kind of funky. And because it's just such a unusual sized coaster, you can tell it's just an afterthought here. Six Flags put it in this park just because they probably bought it cheap, secondhand, and that's kind of what you expect from the ride experience too. It's just an afterthought. There's nothing really special about this thing. The dimensions are pretty small because it was originally intended for a seaside pier. It's just nothing to call home about. That's why it's just kind of in the middle of the pack for the rankings. Number 6, Batman the Ride. This is another coaster that's really starting to show its age, at least for me. I really loved this coaster when it first debuted, but I feel like this one's kind of overexposed. Six Flags basically built this ride at almost every one of their parks. It's not really special because there's so many clones, and not just at Six Flags parks. This coaster got cloned for other amusement parks around the world. I am familiar with this ride layout just a little too much, and because of its, lack of distinctive or uniqueness, I'm just not really a fan of this ride anymore. I think I've ridden it too many times. If you've never ridden it before, you'll probably enjoy it because it is a great ride. Six Flags wouldn't have bought so many of these roller coasters if they weren't a good ride. If you have to wait in line for this thing, it might not be worth it just because there are better roller coasters here at Six Flags Over Georgia. Number 5, Daredevil Dive. Alright, so this pick might catch some hate. Some people think I might overrate this particular roller coaster when I discuss it. It's more of a family ride than a adult coaster. It's not very tall. It's not particularly fast. But I picked this one because it's just a unique experience, and some of the lower picks on my list are very generic, off-the-shelf type of rides. This is more of a unique experience that you don't see a lot at most regional theme parks. That's why some of the larger Vekomas that were on this list have rated lower. This offers a lot of fun. I think this is a great family experience. It's still fast enough and offers a lot of thrills, but you can see from the video, it's not a particularly big roller coaster, but it's smooth as glass. Not a headbanger at all. It is an enjoyable experience for just about anybody, and that's why it came in at number 5 on these rankings. Number 4, the Great American Scream Machine. A lot of people that I've talked to really disrespect this ride because it is one of the older roller coasters at the park. But when this thing opened back in 1973, this was the tallest, longest, and fastest roller coaster in the entire world. So this was a pretty big deal when it first debuted. I still think it's one of the best rides in the park. It's probably the best wooden roller coaster in the entire southeast United States. This is a great experience, and when you look at the specs and the stats, it's obviously not the biggest wooden roller coaster anymore, but just the pedigree and, the fact that this has so much exciting elements for an out and back, the history of this being a John Allen design, it's definitely a roller coaster that you have to ride when you're at Six Flags Over Georgia. I definitely would qualify this as a must-ride attraction. Number 3, the Riddler Mindbender. Okay, so I'm anticipating getting a little hate for this one just because of the age of this coaster. This is a really old coaster. It was built back in 1978, and when it opened, it was marketed as the world's first triple looping coaster. Why did I pick this one so high? Well, I'm not the only one who feels this way about this. Not that long ago, Amusement Today magazine picked this as the 15th best coaster overall in their Golden Ticket Awards. And there were only 2 roller coasters built before 1980 that got Golden Ticket Awards that particular year, and this was one of them. The reason why this is such an amazing coaster is it's a Schwarzkopf. And Schwarzkopf coasters are very rare now. They've, the company went out of business quite a ways back, and a lot of parks are scrapping their Schwarzkopfs. The interesting thing about Schwarzkopf coasters is they are famous for packing a heck of a lot of intensity in a very small ride. And they are probably the best at doing that. This is a great example of this. If you look at the layout of this ride, it's pretty intense for the size. I mean, this coaster is only 80 feet tall. It tops out at 50 miles an hour, which is crazy considering how small it is. And then I heard a rumor that this thing pulls close to 6 Gs in the loops. It's intense. It's just a great experience, and the scenery on this one is pretty neat when it comes to the way this coaster kind of bounces around the rock areas and the canals and everything here at the park. You really need to experience this one. This is a great coaster. Number 2, Goliath.
Speaking of Goliath, I'm picking up something extremely large and fast at 2 o'clock.
Listen, ass clown, get off my commentary track. Pontiacs.
Kid, you said you were doing an analysis on Goliath. What'd you come up with?
Enough already, Hasselhoff. Get lost. Go perm your hair or something. Okay, so let's talk about this coaster. Goliath is a B&M coaster that opened in 2006, and this is a showstopper here at the park. It's the first hyper coaster that they built here at Six Flags Over Georgia. It has a drop of 200 feet, so obviously it's not as big as Millennium Force or Fury 325, but it's still an amazing experience. I love how they incorporated the geography of the park and, sections of the park that you wouldn't really normally see involved in a roller coaster. For example, you kind of swoop over the parking lot area and the different waterways. It's just a pretty interesting layout. It doesn't matter if this has a long line or not. It's worth the wait, even if you got to wait in line 2 hours for it, which is pretty typical in the summer. This is the showstopper here at the park. This one and my number 1 pick are must-ride experiences. Number 1, Twisted Cyclone. As I mentioned in my number 2 pick, Goliath and Twisted Cyclone are pretty much interchangeable for my all-time favorite coaster here at the park, and it just depends on my mood which one is actually number 1. So tomorrow Goliath will be number 1 for me. Anyways, this coaster was built in 1990 as the Georgia Cyclone, and it was a mirror image to the Coney Island Cyclone in New York. That's largely considered the ultimate wooden roller coaster. In 2018, the Rocky Mountain Construction Company came in and retrofitted the coaster with their patented I-box construction, so the coaster rides a lot smoother for a wooden coaster. And this thing is amazing. It really is a fun coaster, and it seems like RMC is brought in constantly to clean up those old, really rough-riding Din Corporation wooden roller coasters. The Mean Streak at Cedar Point was the same way. They were notoriously rough riding coasters, and RMC just makes them silky smooth. So this is a great coaster, highly recommended. You have to ride this one as well as Goliath, even if there's a long wait. Thanks for joining me today again for the rankings on the best roller coasters here at Six Flags Over Georgia. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe.